Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Rockies Daily. I'm your host, Scott Ayers, where we're talking all things Colorado Rockies. Thanks for stopping in. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. Let's just jump into it and let's talk about the opening day lineup. We're under 2 weeks away from players reporting to spring training, which is obviously a really exciting time to get a real feel for what the Rockies have. And so it felt like the right time to make our first prediction of what that opening day lineup will look like. This is something that will obviously be subject to change based on how guys perform in spring training, what the actual talent pool looks like, and where guys could actually be slotted, right? So these are all just kind of early on predictions before we get a better idea after spring training. So once March hits, we're going to revisit this and probably pick apart the things that we like and the things we don't like. I'm also just going to stick with the guys currently on the roster, right? If the Rockies make a move and they sign Nathaniel Lowe, or make a move for someone else, right? Obviously this will be very much subject to change. But I just figured I saw some other predictions looming around, so I figured I'd give my crack at it. And I think there is going to be some consistency across the board, but I would love to hear what you guys think down in the comments below. When you look at the outfield, I think Mickey Moniak is going to be the guy that gets slotted at the DH position. And from left to right, you're going to have Jordan Beck. You will have Brenton Doyle. And then in right field, you're probably going to have McCarthy. Doyle, obviously, is the best defensive player on this team. He gives you a ton of range in the outfield. And I feel like this is what we'll most likely see in the outfield. This is going to be consistent with a lot of people in terms of their predictions here early on. Obviously, you're going to have Hunter Goodman at that catcher position. I think Kyle Freeland's going to get the nod as that opening day starter. It just kind of feels like, hey, this might be your last time to do it, unless obviously we see a resurgence from K Free. And then the infield is where it gets pretty interesting. I've seen Willie Castro slotted at third in a lot of different predictions. I personally would actually rather have him at second. That's his primary position. He played a lot at second. He played a lot in the outfield. And he did play like 20-something games at third, so he can give you that versatility. I just would prefer to see him at that second base position. I would see Tovar at shortstop. And this is where I get a little freaky. This is where my predictions get a little weird. I put Tyler Freeman at the first base position. I saw Edward Julian a lot slotted at first. And Castro at third with Ryan Ritter at second. But I would rather just see Tyler Freeman. Offensively, he just gives you a lot more than those other two guys. Edward Julian, I totally get why he's going to be predicted as an opening day starter, and he might, right? His last two seasons have just been so bad that it's hard to feel confident about slotting him as an opening day guy. And again, I hope I'm wrong. I hope he's awesome in spring training. I hope opening day he goes 4 for 4, 3 home runs, and they get ready to build his statue in front of Coors Field. But I just don't really see that happening. And so that's where I would rather put Freeman at first. There's just been hints that he could be playing a little bit of that in spring training. So I hope we actually get that to see what he's capable of playing at first. Because offensively, his bat just definitely brings more than the other two guys I mentioned. It does leave the hole at third where right now I have Kyle Karros playing third base, which, again, that's going to be subject to change, and it really will depend on how he looks in the spring. But I would just rather see Castro playing second, Karros at third, obviously Tovar at second, and Tyler Freeman at first base. Then when you look at the lineup itself, that I didn't necessarily, oh my goodness gracious, I didn't necessarily mess with that too much, but you obviously want to get Hunter Goodman as many at-bats as possible, have him in the 3 hole, probably Beck at 4, lead off with Tovar and Moniak after that. And then 5 through 9, you can kind of just mess with it. I think Brenton Doyle is going to have a bounce-back year. So I would see him and Freeman at 5 and 6, McCarthy at 7, And then you end the lineup with Willie Castro and Kyle Karros. That's my early season prediction, though. I think really the big thing is just seeing Freeman getting the nod at first base. I think he's the guy that deserves it. And again, I just don't know if Edward Julian is the guy that's going to be starting on opening day. Ryan Ritter is really interesting. Like I wouldn't mind seeing him also being starting at second and Castro at third. I think that's another option there, right? But overall, let me know your thoughts on that lineup as well as what you would do for a starting lineup for this Rockies team, because obviously there are going to be changes throughout spring training. We'll have a better idea of how everyone looks. But this is kind of that early season prediction for you. And then we jump into, I saw an interesting report. DNVR reported that this would actually be the Rockies' second lowest spending season since 2021, or excuse me, the lowest since 2021 and the second lowest since 2015, which is really interesting. That 2015 team, you look back at it, coached by, or manager was Walt Weiss, and they had 3 All-Stars on that 2015 team. Tulo, who was obviously traded to the Blue Jays that year, DJ, and Nolan. But Tulo had like over 300 at bats. It was hitting 300. I mean, what? You look at that infield, and you just think, man, the Rockies had it so good for so long in the infield with DJ, Tulo, and then Story, Nolan Arenado. I mean, that infield was unbelievable. And then in 2021, where they went 74 and 87. Obviously, we still have time, and the Rockies can still spend. But it is interesting to just see something like this. And there's obviously the context in it as well. For the Rockies, you're not going to just spend money just to spend. That just doesn't make sense. You obviously have to be building something and throwing your money at stuff that will actually work. Chris Bryant's the perfect example of a contract that the Rockies were starting to fade. We need to do something quick, and it was a Chris Bryant contract that obviously everyone regrets in that front office. And this is obviously not the front office that signed him, but everyone regrets that contract because it's put the Rockies in a huge bind. And so for spending, right, like I think you're going to see a lot of just these smart contracts that the Rockies are dishing out. But then the hope is these players are able to grow and you're able to invest in those players that you have. But free agent signings will obviously be a key in all this. But it was an interesting thing to see, just the lack of spending. But I don't think that's a sign that the Rockies need to go out and try to spend more for the rest of this free agency. That just doesn't make sense. They will probably make 1 or 2 more signings, and they will hopefully be just smart contracts, right? But nothing crazy. Now, if in 2 years we're still talking about how the Rockies aren't spending anything, that's where I think there can be some criticism and frustration thrown at the front office. But I don't think that's the case. I think this front office has obviously been very methodical in how they are approaching this. And so it makes sense why that spending is low. This wasn't going to be an offseason where the Rockies were going to just spend major bucks coming off the worst season in franchise history. It just doesn't make sense. But quickly debriefing that Luis Arraez signing, he signs with the San Francisco Giants, which creates a really interesting infield for the Giants. And one of the big things for Arraez is he really wanted to still play second base. And so he signs a 1-year, $12 million deal. And ultimately, if Arraez was wanting to play second for the Rockies, I know in the past we were mentioning, hey, it's a weak spot. But after the signings of or after signing Castro and trading for Julian, it just doesn't make sense. And defensively, I think he would actually be more of a problem than anything else if he only wanted to play second for the Rockies. The hope of signing Arraez was, he could play first base. That would be great. But he still really wanted to play second. He'll go play for the Giants and be able to compete But ultimately, I don't think this is a huge whiff for the Rockies. If he was demanding to play second, it's not the end of the world, right? That's not the hole that the Rockies are trying to fill. It would have been really fun to see how his bat would be at Coors Field. He is, as someone put it, he's the ultimate one-tool guy. If you need a double, he'll give you a single. If you need a home run, the guy's going to give you a single. So he obviously has a really solid bat. But as we've mentioned before, there's not a lot of pop in that bat. But it still would have been beneficial to have at Coors Field. I'm not going to play dumb and say, we don't want any sort of solid hitting at Coors Field. But ultimately, gives the Rockies a chance to look elsewhere. Gives them a chance, as we move into the final stages here of the offseason, right? Then we'll head into spring training. And that's not to say that the Rockies won't make signings in spring training, but it will be interesting, right? And so my big thing is, can you find someone for that first base position? I would love to have Tyler Freeman play first, but you know what? If they go and sign Nathaniel Lowe, I think that's still a victory. I think maybe even look to get one more arm for the bullpen. And of course, if there's a veteran starting pitcher, you've got to look at that too. Those are still the three areas that I would look at. There's really no one at third that is super interesting. I mean, I think Suarez is still available. We were just talking about spending. Why not open up the checkbook, spend way too much money on Suarez, and just watch him hit like 50 home runs at Coors Field? I feel like that would be electric. The team would still only win like 60 games, but it would be electric. But no, I think, like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be a couple of smaller signings I think the Rockies still have left in them. Who they'll be, we will see. But overall, I do think this has been a productive enough offseason for this front office. And I'm interested to see how they will adjust and adapt once they actually see the talent on the field and decide what they need to do from there. So, interesting approach. Again, I hope you like this video. Make sure to leave a comment, a like button. Give me your thoughts, too. I would love to see your lineup ideas, as well as your thoughts on the Rockies spending, missing out on a rise, and a free agent that you think the Rockies should consider going after. Because we still have time. The Rockies still have an opportunity to sign someone else here before the season gets rolling. But, again, my name is Scott Ayers. Thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate the support. I got a new microphone, by the way, and it has this big old microphone stand. Don't know what to do with it. So if this microphone was distracting, just let me know. We're continuing to improve the show, folks. We're trying to make this thing better and better as the days go on. New microphone, new sound, new me, as they say. But anyways, hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you tomorrow.